Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. This is Lori Smith, and we're here today, hopefully, to talk about some mental health related issues and maybe start to break down some of the stigmas surrounding them. So, you had a very long career with the state's attorney's office, and so you are quite familiar with um, survivors of crime.
Yes.
And that's a very unique population. So, can you just share a little bit about some of the things that you learned over your many years with the state's attorney's office about these folks?
Sure. Crime can happen to anybody. Violent crime can touch anyone's lives.
Right.
And once it does, life is never the same. Um, People have a range of reactions, um, and they're involved with a multitude of systems that they never expected. The police, the hospitals on an emergency basis, the criminal justice system, maybe juvenile court, adult court, maybe both. And That can create a lot of crisis and anxiety or multiple crises along the way, which can delay involvement with those systems, can delay healing in some
Sure.
cases. For folks who live with pre existing mental health issues, it can exacerbate and take people out of remission. Um, there can be exacerbation or beginning of substance problems, post traumatic stress disorder. And so it is just it wreaks havoc on mental health.
And I'm sure that even when this machine is working at its best, there's a whole lot of hurry up and wait, a whole lot of unpredictable uh, aspects. There's a whole lot of I don't understand what's going on, right? So if there's all this confusion or perhaps even conflicting information, I
Hmm.
can't imagine that even the most well balanced person is going to go through something like this unscathed.
No, it's again, law enforcement has its own language. The criminal justice system has its own language, its own rules, its own um, set of the way those rules are carried out. We live in a culture in popular culture where there's a lot of information on crime shows and people think they understand what's going on. And in the best of circumstances, if it's a mini series, it takes 6 to 12 episodes for something to resolve.
As
And the,
opposed to 6 to 12 years, right?
correct,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah, right.
when I left the state's attorney's office, there were still families who lost a loved one through a murder where they were still waiting 10 years later
Yeah.
for that case to be taken to trial.
And
Uh,
how do you heal when the wound is opened and over and over and over again, right?
right. I think there can be, as I sort of thought about it, episodic healing. Um,
Okay.
it's never really healed. Um, and People can get better. They can get acculturated to the criminal justice system, but every 4 to 6 weeks, when that case comes up again, if a case is charged,
Right.
they can, it reopens that wound at some level and increases anxiety. And people often find themselves not able to go to work,
Right.
um, get out of bed. I think of a woman whose son was murdered, and they went through 7 years of trial. There were multiple defendants who just said, I have, nightmare days where I can't even get out of bed. I have
Right.
bad days where I can get out of bed but can't do anything. I have okay days where I can get dressed and get out of the house. But there's never
A good day.
a good day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, as you think about, the many, many, many people that you worked with, um, is there something that, if there's somebody watching who has been a victim of crime, despite of whether it's recent or in the past or, you know, where they are in dealing with it. Is there something that you wish these people would have realized?
Yep.
Like, even though you may have been saying it over and over again, it tended not to kind of get heard. Is there something that you really wish they could have
Yep.
realized?
So, and the other thing I want to make sure that I mention before I answer that directly is the multitude of people who are crime victims or survivors of crime don't report, and their cases don't end up in the criminal justice system.
Exactly.
And so for them, there's always a layer of, um, that there's always a layer of what if, even if they feel resolved and understand why
Right.
they
Should
didn't
I
call
have
the police.
reported
Right,
it? What if I would have reported
right,
it?
right.
And the what if I would have reported it could be the fear of retaliation as
Absolutely.
much as maybe I would get some
A-
uh, relief.
absolutely. So what I really, to answer your question directly, what I would really hope people could hear is, um, you know, that the crisis, the chaos, the internal feelings that the world is upside down is a normal response
Okay.
for somebody who's lived through this, these kind of nightmares, and that it takes a while for things to recalibrate, and that there's really an importance to having support, either peer support, rape rape survivor groups, domestic survivor groups,
Right.
homicide survivor support groups, where you are in a group with people who've been on that journey at all different stages, where you can, um, they can help you.
Right.
And the other is to reach out and seek mental health support,
For sure.
either again through a group or through individual treatment, particularly if somebody has a just particularly if this has happened.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because, I think well-meaning friends and family may say, "Oh, well, time will heal all
Yep,
wounds," and things like that. But maybe the intensity or the acuteness might shift. But the reality of it is, unless you intentionally work on processing everything that happened and all the
right,
feelings that went along with it, I mean, it might get buried for a while, but it will eventually come
right.
back out. And it's a really difficult way to live your life.
So it shows up when people least expect it, right? I mean, I know a person who lost a loved one through a reckless homicide, and a driver hit the person while they were walking across the
Ah,
street,
okay.
and this person was driving, uh, you know, uh, 2 years later to a retreat for work, and had a funky start to the day and got lost on the way to the retreat to a place where they'd been half a million times. Um, just had pulled over and started to sob and just wasn't connecting the dots.
Right,
And when they looked down at their phone and they saw the date, they realized that
right,
it was the anniversary, and they hadn't been thinking about it.
right.
So those are the ways it can show up.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that. So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye now.
Bye bye.